What I want you to do is to stop overthinking it and start evaluating this like a grown woman with options, okay? And so know that you do have options. Know that this is always a possibility. Like, trust me, I never in my life did I ever think that I will move back to Mexico. Never. But just the way that life gets you and treats you sometimes, I mean, we had to figure out a solution and a way to do something for ourselves. Hola, hola. Welcome to the Viva la Mami podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Cuevas. And on today's solo episode, I have some strategies to share just because I have received a lot of DMs, a lot of questions about how we made it possible to move to Mexico. I am so excited to share with you sort of like 3 action steps that you can take before you make the official move. And I think these 3 action steps will also help give yourself permission in order to make this possible. And so I'm going to speak mostly in the context of moving to Mexico, just because that's the only experience I have. That's basically where my family is right now at this moment. But if you are someone who is thinking about going abroad somewhere else, I hope that some of these tips can work for you as well, because in general, these are some steps that anyone should take, especially if they're thinking about moving abroad outside of the US. But before we delve into the conversation, I really want you to do me a favor. If you can please rate and review the show, that way people like you can find us on the podcast and wherever they listen to podcasts. I would also love it if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, just because I am trying to find different ways to have a broader platform, and that way people can find Viva la Mami. I truly believe in the power of community, and as part of us as Latina moms, I really want to be intentional in who I am reaching out to. And my hope is to continue to grow this platform so that way mamas wouldn't be lost in their motherhood journeys. So please, please, please rate and review the show and also subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where I share a lot of information as it relates to motherhood, but especially as it relates to our life in Mexico right now. And ever since I've shared on social media about our life here in Mexico, like I said, I have received a ton of questions, at least based on these 3 action steps that I'm going to share. It's relevant to the majority of the questions and information I have gotten from my followers and people who have reached out to me. So the first action step that I really want you to take is to check your legal status before you spiral, okay? And the reason why is because it does make it a lot easier once you are living abroad. Now, for those of us who are US citizens, a lot of us have utilized our US passport as a gateway and as a door and as an opportunity to go anywhere. Having a US passport in itself is a privilege, just because there aren't some stringent things that you have to go through in traveling the majority of the countries in the world. I mean, obviously, if you want to go to China, Russia, Cuba, I mean, that makes things a little bit complicated. But for the most part, you don't necessarily need a specific visa. Or if you do have a visa, they're not as complicated as if you had a Mexican passport and going to the US, because it's pretty challenging. So with that, it almost puts this into a mindset of like, oh, well, I can go anywhere. And yes, you get to choose wherever you want to move abroad. But when it comes to moving abroad, you want to make sure that you go through the legal things as it relates for you to just like live abroad. Because if you don't get to work on this first, I mean, how are you going to be able to live abroad? Let's just face it. And I know that many of us are inspired by all these digital nomads, you know, the ones that started it all during the pandemic y toda la cosa. But in reality, these people have been going from one place to the other. They haven't really established themselves. If you want that lifestyle, great, good for you. But in the context of this episode is for those of us who want to move somewhere outside of the United States and live there at least for a year, if not permanently. So if this is you, then you definitely want to make sure that you get things settled. This could be if you are eligible for dual citizenship, or do you qualify through your parents or lineage? Also, would you need temporary or permanent residency if in case your family isn't from that country? So there's a lot of nuances there that you want to make sure that you have all the documents right, and that all these documents will give you that sort of access for you to live abroad. The reason why this should be the first step is because once you get through the paperwork, it's going to feel a lot easy. And I share this a lot in my How to Get Dual Citizenship in Mexico course, where I talk about how oftentimes people have hit a wall once they want to start the citizenship process because it takes a lot of paperwork. It takes a lot of commitment to get through this process. And this is also relevant to looking into a specific visa, or if you are looking into temporary or permanent residency. Like, there are specific nuances to each and every process. And once you get through this, you're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're going to be able to proceed with the next step. So this should be the very first step, just because this kind of gives you the open doors to the possibilities in you actually making this a reality for you to move abroad. If in case you are a child of Mexican-born parents, and if you have not yet gained your dual citizenship, I have 2 digital products. One is my e-guide, which is kind of like a checklist of the things that you need to get done in order to gain dual citizenship. And this is sort of like if you want to work on your own. But if in case you want a more step-by-step process where you need someone to show you, then I have my digital course. And within the digital course, it is bundled with the e-guide. And so this is all for those of you who haven't yet gotten dual citizenship. So go to my website, which is vivalamami.com/shop. These digital products are located in my shop page. But I will also provide you the link in the show notes and in the description of this video. That way you get to have direct access to the links. The next step is pretty hefty, and I think it's a very, very important one. And this is all based on the majority of the concerns that I have received from people who want to move to Mexico or just want to move abroad, but feel that they are restricted because they don't know where to go from here. And that is money. And so what I want you to do is to literally run the numbers and don't romanticize your potential move abroad. And the reason why is because we have to be realistic in terms of how much you are able to afford based on either your current situation or based on a potential situation that you may encounter that may limit the amount of money that you're making. And so the majority of the questions that I've received is people asking me, well, how do I find a job? Where can I make money while living abroad? I've shared that in a previous episode as part of my Living in Mexico series that I've had with my husband, Alex, because obviously he's an important aspect of our move to Mexico. And we shared how you can make money while living abroad. And so I will link the whole series so that way you can binge watch or binge listen, if that's a word, with regards to all of these different nuances about our move to Mexico. But one of them is definitely how can we essentially afford living in a different country. And one of the things that we've definitely shared is that we have 3 different sources of income. One of them is through Alex's job, which he was able to keep just because his company is internationally based. So meaning that they have different offices around the world, and his position has always been remote. So he can basically work from anywhere. And my job, like, I haven't yet gotten a full-time job. In fact, that was one of the reasons why we decided to move to Mexico. I couldn't find a full-time job in the United States. Like, it took me over a year and I had still not found a job. And so that's almost like my way of figuring out, like, what are the next steps? What is something that we can do different? And plan D was us moving to Mexico, and it literally came to fruition. So with me not having a full-time job, I mean, I've come to realize that it's okay, because right now I'm in a season of just being the primary caregiver, right? I pick up, drop off the kids to school. I help them with their activities and things like that. Obviously, Alex is involved, but just because he has a traditional 9 to 5, he doesn't have as much flexibility. So at least we have this one parent that is able to do that. And just because the way that Mexico is very flexible, it's very like centered around family and especially the student schedule, that you just need someone in your village to look after them. And I'm that person. But even though I don't have a full-time job, I have been pretty fortunate to find freelance work, temporary work, contract jobs, just like jobs that essentially make money where I am able to gain skills. I'm still adding that into my resume, but that I don't have to fully commit to like 100%. And in fact, what I have found is that there's a lot of jobs out there that are either 1099, that are contract based, that are freelance based, that are not your typical 9 to 5 W-2 jobs, because those, first of all, are very hard to find if you want to find a fully remote position. And second of all, if you are moving abroad, like it doesn't make sense to be taxed so much money out of your paycheck because of like insurance, because of all of these like taxes that you have to pay in your state. Like, that is not necessary. So if I were you, I would look for a non-traditional part-time 1099 contract type job where the company doesn't have to commit so much in paying you on these benefits. And so there are ways to find jobs like that. And then, of course, the other source of income that we have is through our investment property. So 3 years ago, we bought a multifamily home in Chicago where we house hacked for a little bit just to like try to make ends meet and save and all of that. And also that gave us the opportunity to dream big and to really think, what are the next steps? And through this investment property, we've been very, very lucky that we have been able to afford living here where we're at in León, Guanajuato, because what we make out of the rent, we do build income out of that. Whatever we get from that, we pay that towards the rent in this house. So that's what makes it a little bit smart, I would say, that if you have other sources of income that is not your traditional 9 to 5, you never know how much it'll help you to fund your expenses either in Mexico or at a different country. So one of the things that I want you to do is to calculate what those expenses are, like how much are you spending right now in the US, anywhere from living expenses to medical to debts, whatever it is. And then figure out how realistic it would be to potentially convert that into the expenses that you would have abroad. And in the show notes, I will be sharing a website that helps you compare the cost of the city that you're currently living in, if it's in the database, and the city that you want to move to. And again, that's if it's in the database. But for the most part, this is intentionally for people that are expats, right? But I'm taking that over, and reclaiming it and want to reclaim it really for anyone who wants to move abroad. And I think that we should have that resource, and that way we can access it and figure out what is the realistic cost of living for that specific city that you want to move to. And so I think you have to definitely compare the cost of living where you're at right now versus where you want to move to in Mexico or wherever you want to move to. And so think about it. It's not about romanticizing. This isn't about escaping your current situation. Like, you need to come to the reality of like, okay, there's a reason why we want to move to X country. How is this going to be possible? And a lot of the times it's the financial part where it can deter people away from moving, or it can inspire people and motivate them to move forward in this process. So I want you to write down your current monthly expenses and how would that translate into your potentially new expenses in the city and country that you want to move to. The third action step is that I want you to be clear on why you want to leave. And a lot of times things run through our heads, right? And sometimes we're not really practical in our way of thinking. And sometimes we're a little bit more reactive, and we just say like, oh, I hate it here. I can't stand it here. I just want to move. And then you go through this rabbit hole of just like trying to figure out how to literally move tomorrow to a different country. And honestly, it takes time. Like for us, it took us 5 months to move to Mexico. I feel like it took us a quicker time than compared to other families. Like some families, it takes them half a year, it takes them 2 years. So it all just depends. And so sometimes the feelings that we're feeling right now can dictate our actions. And sometimes these actions aren't sustainable. And so I really want you to delve deep, and you can write this down, you can talk to someone, whatever it is, but I really want you to sit down and think, why is it that you want to move to Mexico or to whatever country that you want to move to? Like, think about, what are you moving toward? Is it to have more time with your kids? Is it to have this cultural connection with your roots? Is it so that you can have this level of financial freedom or financial flexibility? Is it so that you can have a slower lifestyle and not hustle every day because that is so toxic in the US? Is it so that you can raise bilingual kids or bicultural kids? And so these are some questions that you should think about. Like, what is your true reason behind your wanting to move to Mexico or a different country? Moving countries magnifies who you are. If you don't know your why, relocation will feel chaotic and it will feel like you are lost. It'll feel like you still don't have the sense of belonging. And so you just want to make sure that you are making the right decision, not just for yourself, not just for your family, but it's also like your purpose. Like, what is your purpose? What is your 1-year goal, your 5-year goal? What's your 10-year goal? And you don't have to answer that from the get-go, but whatever you're reflecting on, whatever your true meaning behind your reasoning as to why you want to move to Mexico, it can help you spark kind of like that plan, those goals, so that you can reach them. And so after this episode, I want you to write down why you are moving to Mexico. So start writing, I want to move to Mexico or whatever country because blah, 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 blah. I can't answer that for you, but if in case you do need support, I know that it can be isolating. I know it can feel overwhelming. I have a free Discord group available for anyone that is interested in moving to Mexico. This is for those of us who are trying to reclaim our roots, who want to reverse migrate, who want to go back to the motherland where our family came from, or for those of you who just don't want to be a part of these expat Facebook groups that I have shared a lot on social media about. But essentially, this group is an open community for anyone who needs assistance, who wants to feel inspired, who wants to connect with other individuals who have also been a part of this experience. There's a mix of people that want to move to Mexico and the ones that are already in Mexico. So we can share this wisdom and knowledge and experience, and that way we can inspire each other and uplift each other to live in the motherland. And so the link to join is in this episode, and that way you can join our Discord group. Today, I gave you 3 things that you should consider before making the move abroad or the move to Mexico. And so what I want you to do is to stop overthinking it and start evaluating this like a grown woman with options, okay? And so know that you do have options. Know that this is always a possibility. Like, trust me, I never in my life did I ever think that I will move back to Mexico. Never. But just the way that life gets you and treats you sometimes, I mean, we had to figure out a solution and a way to do something for ourselves. Like, I didn't want to be stuck in a 1-bedroom apartment. I didn't want to feel like this level of distress. I didn't want to just miss out on my kids' first few years of life. Like, I knew that I wanted something, and that was to live in a country that really respects families, that really centers families. And so I knew that Mexico was going to be the best option for me and my family at this given moment of time. And, initially we've shared about us moving to Mexico for a year, but honestly, we want to live here for a couple years. This could be, during our kids' primary school years or until they reach high school. I don't know. I don't know how that looks like, but I know that we're here and we are doing the best that we can to not just sustain ourselves, but also to have a little bit of clarity. And that's what I want. Like, if you know that you've always wanted to make this move for whatever reasons, you definitely have to have the legal clarity, you have to have the financial clarity, and you have to have the emotional clarity as well. And so if these three things can really inspire you to proceed in the next steps of your move, like, it's possible. Trust me, it will be possible. If in case you want a more personalized approach in your potential move to Mexico, then I am offering a 1-hour one-on-one consultation to move to Mexico. And so this is for anyone who needs that individualized attention, who wants to have a conversation, who wants accountability. And so I am here to offer this, to give you this opportunity to talk to me, and I can provide you with a step-by-step roadmap for you. And that way you can make this move to Mexico a reality. If you want to learn more about my 1-hour one-on-one consultation, you can click in the link in the show notes or in the description of this YouTube video. And that way we can start this process. I am very excited for you. There's a reason why you decided to pick this episode, and that way you can feel inspired and really realize and know that there's so many people behind you. There's so many people who are in the same boat as you. I was one of them, trust me. And I kind of wish I had the resources like the ones that I'm sharing right now to you. But I hope that this serves as permission for you to go and live outside of the United States, especially if there are reasons behind why. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. As always, please rate and review the show, share this with an amiga. And if in case you need that support, know that all these resources that I mentioned are in the show notes and description. All right, amiga. Well, thank you so much for listening. Hasta la próxima y nos vemos in the next episode.